Hey everyone, welcome to the 8th episode of the VYRus Show, a podcast about broad discussion on design. And today we have a very special guest, Rishabh Jain, founder of Confetti Design Studio, who I have been admiring for so long, from the start of my career. He is the person I always look up to and want to be to be like him someday. So today we are having a podcast with him. And Rishabh, for those who don't know about you, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your journey?
Sure, man, sure. Thanks for the introduction. So, a bit about myself. So, I'm the founder of Confetti Design Studio, and we've been working with FMCG brands and retail brands, primarily helping the startup side of the FMCG and retail brands to cut through the noise and actually sell as many products as possible through digital routes, physical routes. Because I don't know if people are aware, but more than tech brands, FMCG brands have like a 95 to 96% failure rate. So that is where we come in. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. And yeah, man, that's about it. That's a short and
That's
crisp
great.
introduction of myself.
Yeah, definitely. That is great. Just your expertise and your the fact that you have niched down to this FMCG group made me get you on this podcast and understand why you did that. So that's the whole idea of the podcast. We will be talking about FMCG, your agency, your early career, and how you landed up in design. So that's the whole idea. So, but before we get into the whole main topic, that branding and FMCG and all those heavy terms of the industry, tell us about yourself. Tell us about you and how you landed up in design specifically.
Sure, man. So ever since I was a child, I was really like inclined towards drawing, like
Okay.
just paper and pencil type of drawing. And this sort of took even more control of like my regular day when I was in college, fourth year and third year especially. So I was doing BTech. So a very mainstream sort of a educational path I was on.
Mm.
And in third and fourth year, there was a massive rise in these Copic markers, and everybody was into doodling. And that's the time when Mr. Doodle, like one of like the most popular creators in this space, sort of popped
Mm.
off. So there was Mr. Doodle, Vex, and a lot of other artists. And that's when I started using alcohol markers. So that sort of got me into design, Instagram, and uploading my artwork on the internet. And this is pre Instagram Reels era. So that is the time when static designs and static images used to, that is all Instagram was used for. And after my fourth year, I had to choose either between an MBA or Masters in Design, or like MSc in Design or MDes. So I chose MDes. And at that time, because I did not have any portfolio, because I was a computer science student, so I used my Instagram account as my portfolio and started applying to uh, both colleges in India and outside. Most of the Indian colleges got back to me saying that you can't do masters in design or masters of science in design unless you have done a bachelor's program in design. So it's like fair enough, and I did not pursue that too deeply. And eventually, I got acceptance from Brunel University in London. So for the product design uh, course, Masters of Science in Product Design, and
Mm.
in that particular course, it was not a graphic design course or a branding course or UI UX course. It was completely integrated course where they covered everything from branding to UI UX to 3D product design, manufacturing and design, about when to do injection molding, when to do 3D printing, all like different manufacturing processes. And that's where I think I was actually able to take design a bit more seriously from a career point of view. Because I don't know if many people are aware, but when you go outside India for pursuing design, especially masters,
Mhm.
you face two types of students. Either other students who have taken student loans to, enter masters, which is not a huge thing which happens in India because outside student loans are really expensive. And the other type of people are already people who have started working in design, have saved up a lot of money, have 3, 4 years of experience or 10 years of experience, and then are coming back to continue their masters. So when I was in Brunel, I was actually one of the youngest people, and we had people like who were once a chief designer of Samsung, people from all across the globe, people from Hong Kong, from China, from the UK, Asia. So that was the time when I had the highest global exposure of design, and how uh, in India at that time, or at least this kind of circle that I was in, how we are looking at design in a very primitive manner compared to a lot of these other students. So had a lot of mentors there, and that is when I was able to officially convert myself into a proper UI UX designer. So that is where my journey actually started. It was not a person in graphic design or branding or packaging for retail. It was out and out tech, product design, UI UX, web design, mobile applications. That is what I was building. And yeah, once that finished, I was able to land a job in Bangalore. And interestingly enough, my first job in Bangalore was as a creative director. So most people start as a junior designer, as a intern or whatever, but I was able to get a foot in the door in a very early stage startup as a creative director, because I was also very young and they were trying to cut costs. So they were like, okay, we have somebody who can do a bit of Photoshop, do a bit of this. So they gave me a very flashy title so that even I can be happy. So once I was able to land that job, that is when it just never stopped. So I had 2 jobs before I started Confetti. And interestingly enough, I was able to start Confetti at the age of 25. So had my first job at 23, switched another job at the age of 24, and start Confetti somewhere around at the age of 25. And yeah, since then I've been working with Confetti and on Confetti for the last 3 years. We're gonna complete 3 years in the next 2 months. So that's where we are right now.
That is great. So one thing I would like to ask here, like I am very skeptical about masters, pursuing a masters in design from out of India. Like I want to do that, but what I have heard from all of the people that it is a waste of money, or it is very expensive, or there is not a much return of interest on that. So what like, do you think that particular masters played a very important role in your career as a designer, or should as a designer in
100%.
India?
100%. I'll tell
Okay.
you. So the core
Okay.
challenge is a lot of people when they go outside to study,
Mm-hmm.
they and at least that's been the case with other Indian students who went along with me. So it was not just me, there were several people from Delhi who also went. And the issue with the masters is that it's a very short course. It's 1 year, 1.5 year type of a course. And time goes by like this. Because you go to, let's say I went to London, first 6 months, you just get used to the public transports, the ins and outs, you create your bank account, you make some friends. A couple months later, you have your final exams, your dissertation, and the master's is finished. So one thing which a lot of people who were coming from India, who did not have a design background, but are just doing design because they think it's fun, they went there for the first 6 months, they just spent it in partying. The other 6 months, they were like, okay, now we have to catch up and do the work. And by that time, the master's course is already finished. But the global exposure that it gave me and the sort of mentorship that I had from 2 of my professors, Rob Holding and Fabrizio. So they were like the professors that I had, and like the actual contribution which they have made to design is crazy. Like Fabrizio is from Italy, and he is like a very well-renowned designer in Italy. So he's from Milan in particular. So these are the people who actually got me to think critically about design. And because I did not have a design background to begin with, within 1 year, I was able to go from point 1 to point 100. But of course, there are opportunities in which it can be super expensive. Like my course in particular, it was somewhere around 18,000 pounds. So convert karke dekhe, then somewhere around 17, 18 lakh rupees. And on a daily basis, what I used to do, I used to put myself on a budget of 10 pounds. That, okay, on a daily basis, I will not spend more than 1,000 rupees. Now, that got me to use public transports to the maximum capacity, use student discounts to the maximum capacity. And a lot of people in the UK, and for that matter, any other city, there is an ability to live a regular, modest student life. And there is an ability to live a very fancy life as well, where you're taking taxis in the UK, where the taxis bill coming out to be, 150 pounds. Okay, finished. You have like spent 15,000 rupees on taxis. So there are students of both categories. So I consciously put myself on a budget of 10 pounds per day and realized that, okay, my parents will not give me another chance. It's already difficult to convince your parents after doing bachelor's that, okay, I'm not taking MBA, I'm not doing MTech, I want to do master's in design. and I was not earning any money. I was still like a fresh student out of engineering college. So I realized my parents would not give me another chance. And I'm also coming from a small town in Aligarh. So I had to realize that I make the most of it. And interestingly enough, at the end of the course, I was actually able to win like a distinction when it comes to masters and a design award. And out of this complete set of like 65, 66 people, on the final day, I realized that, okay, I actually ended up as rank 1 out of 67, 65 people, where there were
Great.
people who were previously working as a chief designer in Samsung, people who had 6 to 8 years of experience and then coming back to complete their masters. So you can get an ROI out of that. Maybe not immediately. There are some people who I know who are still working in the UK, so they have already got the ROI. But there are people for whom that was only a 1.5 year of vacation. And they were able to just like pass through because no university would stop you from making them rich. So their 1 year course, 1.5 year course actually ended up taking 2.5 years because they failed in the dissertation or they failed in the final exams. So university just asked them to pay the money once again. So there are both ends of the spectrum. And I think at this point, if you have already started working in India, then I would not suggest you to go outside because let's say it takes an investment of 20,000 pounds or 20 lakh rupees. Now you can do a lot with 20 lakh rupees. So you can get really good mentorship. You can build a really successful personal brand. So if I have to suggest somebody, I would not suggest you to do the master's sort of program now in your career. But back then, because I had to start understanding design from ground, like level 0, then it was still making financial sense. Now, if you're already earning money, then you can just use that 20 lakhs into, like, look into this thing. If you create content on a daily basis, let's say you have 10,000, 20,000 followers, just like a brand would run their ads. What if you as a designer start running your ads? Even if you run your ads for 50,000 rupees a month on LinkedIn and are able to generate leads, you can successfully, like, with 50,000 rupees of promotions of your own personal brand, that can give you much instant ROI. Because if your long-term plan is eventually you want to do what you're doing, then that 20 lakh rupees will not teach you so much. Plus, at that time, the availability of resources on the internet was much lower compared to now. So back then, I think it still made sense because at that time, the options were much less. But if there is somebody who's listening, who's already making good amount of money, even making 50,000, 1 lakh rupees a month on design, would not recommend to go to the UK unless you eventually want to move there. So, yeah. So I think it depends from person to person.
That is that absolutely makes sense. And everyone that I've asked this question has recommended me the same thing that you just mentioned, that you can get a lot more return on investment in just half the money. As I was calculating a living cost in UK, not UK, US, New York, it is coming around like 50,000 USD, like 50 lakhs a year. That is just living cost in the main city, in the prime city. But and then there is a education cost which is going around like 1 CR for a year or for 2 years. So it is extremely
I'll
expensive.
tell you. You know how much I totally spent in my UK sort of, let's say, life, like for 1.5 years? I think it was total education plus hostel plus food plus everything, 30 lakhs.
That is way too less. How did you manage to do that?
Exactly. So, because I was living in hostel accommodation, I was cooking every single meal on my own. So whenever people calculate, like, and people, you can, use ChatGPT for calculating, it assumes that, okay, once in a week you will also go out. Don't go out. Like, because whenever you're calculating it through ChatGPT or any sort of calculator, it assumes certain things. That, okay, once you're there, you'll also do some shopping. Don't do shopping. You will also buy a $6 Starbucks coffee. So in these scenarios, we can just like make so much, out of this. So in total, if I remember correctly, my tuition fees was 18,000 pounds. And I think my accommodation was somewhere like 6 to 7,000 pounds per year. And on top of that, I think I only spent 6 to 7,000 pounds. As I told you, like 10 pounds per day. So you can imagine 10 pounds, even if I multiplied by 365,
Yeah,
It's what,
3,650.
3,650 pounds. And on top of that, let's say 1,000 pounds for flight back and forth to India.
Yeah.
And let's say some days I had more expenses for some groceries or for whatever. It would not go beyond 5,000, 6,000 pounds for complete living expenses. So 18,000 pounds for tuition, 6,000 pounds for living expenses, 24,000. Let's say 6, 7,000 pounds for hostel as well. 30,000 flat, everything is gone. So you have to like be very frugal when you have to realize that, okay, your parents will not give you another chance.
I am not expecting my parents to like they want me to do masters. I am like figuring out if I should do or not. As you recommended, I can get a mentorship. How in the like 10 if I spend 10 lakhs on mentorship, I can get mentorship from top designers, top creative director from the
100%.
industry, and yeah, so that makes sense now. And we have really a lot more resources on the internet as compared to back then. So yeah, that makes sense. It is it again comes down to subjective thing, and it matters on person to person. But that was a very interesting insight. I was like, I still am very skeptical about this particular thing, and I think a lot of people who are watching this and listening this might be thinking about doing a masters in India or some from somewhere else. Even in India, it is around 20 lakhs a year, or like for the
Really?
whole degree. Yeah, it is like that. I've heard of, yeah, for the
So
top colleges. Yeah.
yeah, in
Mm,
that case, my
mm,
my Brunel masters, like the
mm.
tuition fee was 18,000. That's much lower than
For
India
like
itself.
for 1 year or for the whole, how long it was?
Masters, 1.5 years.
1.5 years. That is good, because I've heard
Yeah.
like there is bachelors around 20 lakhs. I spent for 10 lakhs for my engineering. I'm also engineer. Yeah,
Hmm.
so the same
Yeah.
thing.
But yeah, man, in like design at this
Mm,
stage, I think a college or university sort of setup
mm,
used to give a lot of ROI,
mm,
but now even people are open to a lot more freelancers
mm,
compared to 5, 6 years back. Like at that time, for designers, like, okay, you want to be a freelancer? Oh, it's so risky. You have to be physically present. And I think once COVID happened, then a lot more people are okay with working with people remotely, which
I
allowed
think yeah.
freelancers to, thrive in the compared to pre-COVID era and post-COVID era. So
Mm,
post-COVID era, if you're a freelancer, you can work from anywhere. Back then, it's like, oh, working from home. Okay, so if you want to work with a US client, you have to be in US. You want to work with a UK client, you have to be in the UK. So
mm.
that was the mindset which I had back then, which made sense back then, but not anymore, dude. Not at all.
Things change, time change, and after COVID, a lot of things have changed. I would say, yeah.
Exactly, man.
So one thing you mentioned that it was like I had a very interesting question about like I love to ask this particular thing to all designers or everyone in the design field, that in your childhood when you were unaware about design, even that doodling and all thing impacted your thing. So was it anything else or something more creative that made you a better designer or helped you that I can be a better designer because I used to do this particular thing back then in my childhood? I will give you an example of
Mm.
about my journey. That when I was in school, like ninth class, I don't remember, but I used to draw. I was very bad at drawing, but I used to draw. My mom is an artist. She make me like बनाओ अच्छे से बनाओ इसको ये सब चीजें. So I have been scholarly a lot of time to draw things good. But after I get into design, I thought I'm a very bad person in drawing. But it kind of helped me to be creative and to think out of the box and be a better designer. So has been what has been your experience regarding this?
So I was actually a very good artist, like on paper artist.
Okay.
That is something which I was
Mm,
really good at. Comparing that to design,
mm,
I was not a very good designer. So I'll tell you. So
okay.
interestingly enough, I would
Mm,
say I'm not the best when it comes to graphic design or UI UX design or anything like that. Uh, what luckily has worked very well for me is design strategy and understanding how do multiple pieces connect with each other. I'll give you an example. In
mm,
FMCG, the difference between designing for FMCG brands and designing for, let's say, B2B SaaS brands is that if there is a particular type of packaging which you have designed, which has gone into production,
mm,
you can't undo the color of that packaging because now it's gone. Now it's printed. Now it's the person has printed 1 lakh bottles out of it or 1 lakh packaging, 1 lakh whatever out of it. Compare that to designing for a tech brand. Let's say a
mm,
feature is not working. Okay, let's tweak it. oh, this CTA color is not working. Okay, let's make it lighter. Let's make it darker, whatever it is. Designing for FMCG is not the case. So what has worked really well for me is not that I'm a good designer. I'm not a good packaging designer. I'm not a good UI UX designer, but I'm able to link how all the pieces work together. So for example, how will this particular packaging be manufactured? How will the manufacturing of this packaging change the cost? Okay, if we go with a plastic bottle versus a glass bottle, how will the logistics of that change? If you have to courier it to, let's say, from Delhi to Bombay, how does the color of the glass change the shelf life? If the color is transparent, then the shelf life will reduce. If the color is opaque, then the shelf life will increase for, let's say, cosmetics. So more than actual graphic designing, it's the linking of all the pieces of manufacturing, branding, packaging to photography, to videography, to social media influencers, to the founder's personal branding. That has worked well for me, not the actual design part.
Yeah, that is very interesting insight. The shelf color part was something that I don't know, but that makes sense. But one thing that you mentioned that is it like it is easy for someone to design in a SaaS or in a software product or on a digital media as compared to a physical media. It will be there in any industry, be it FMCG or be it something else. But how has been your experience in terms of selling to these kind of people? This is a question that I would like to come back to later again. But just we are
Sure.
talking about this. I would like to discuss that. How has been your experience to selling to FMCG product founders as compared to someone as like, for example, tech brand or a SaaS product?
Hmm.
So,
Correct. So I would not say designing for tech and SaaS is easier, but I would say
Mhm.
the challenges are very different. For tech and SaaS, it's a lot more iteration.
Mhm.
That okay, this thing is not working. Okay,
Mhm.
why is it not working? Where is the drop off happening? Because traditionally, I was a UI
Mhm.
UX designer, so I know the challenges which UI UX designers or designing for tech or SaaS face.
Mhm.
So there is a lot more analytical. You have to be really good with maths. You have to be really good at observing how people interact with your mobile application. So all of those things are there. So the challenges are different. The challenges are completely different. But when it comes to selling to FMCG founders, I think the biggest thing that has worked very well for us is not playing their game, because in case they're the brand who actually needs your assistance, your consultation, your services, let's look at them as a patient. We can't let the patient diagnose themselves. And I think that is what a lot of agencies or freelancers, I would say, do, is that they simply fold in front of the client that, okay, we need a packaging. And their first question is, oh, by when do you need it? Or how many products are there? Now, these are the questions which, like, you're not going deeper into the surface. You're not diagnosing a problem. It's more like an order taker. So we simply actually let the clients know, especially the first time FMCG founders, of what are the challenges which they might face in the future. And we have tons of case studies to show what sort of challenges which the brand might face. And we help them take off the rose tinted glasses, because at that time they're in the honeymoon phase. That, oh, I just registered my brand. I just got some savings done. So now I will launch this brand and everything will go successfully and I will become a millionaire. So the only thing which works for us is just helping them remove that rose tinted glass and and allowing them to understand the number of moving pieces. Unlike, let's say, any other brand that they're working with, in FMCG and retail, you have your branding, your packaging, manufacturing, let's say your website, how you're available on marketplaces, what all marketplaces are you available at, which marketplace is taking how much commission, how much does the final Razorpay thing cost when you're making the payment. Razorpay will charge you 3% or whatever. Then you have to hire models for photography. Then you will have to hire a studio for photography. What if your packaging change? Then will your photography will be repeated? Because then now your photography is completely outdated. So there are so many moving pieces there, which once we talk to a client on a call,
Mhm.
that's when they realize that, okay, it's much more complicated than what we were thinking. So the aim is not to put fear in their mind, but
Mhm.
educating them so that they can actually take the informed decision. At the end, there are some brands who still do it in a DIY approach that, oh, whatever you're saying does not make sense. So let us go back to what we were doing. So the aim is not to put fear. The aim is to let them see things from a perspective of a realist, not an idealist, because things don't go according to the plan. And the failure rate is massive. Plus, something which we've seen with a lot of our brands is if they are very innovative, 6 months later, some big brand comes and just copies their concept and launches their product, and now this startup is completely out of the market. So the rate at which you can innovate in tech and SaaS is relatively higher. But in B2B SaaS, I already have like 20 lakh products worth of inventory. Now, what will I do with that? So those sort of things really suck up the financials and the mindset of a founder, and helping them by educating them and making them an educated buyer is what is, allowing them to work with us a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. FMCG, I've seen like there is a lot of things at stake as compared to startups or digital brands or SaaS products companies. It is not easy. Neither of these are easy.
Yeah.
It will be wrong to say that any of this is easy. It will hurt a lot of people. But FMCG is having like a lot of things at stake. Like it is all physical. They're like, if the product is not selling, it is in front of them. It is being wasted in front of them. And there might be any reason behind that. Sometimes there is a bad
100%.
packaging, there is a bad communication. Sometimes their product itself is not good.
Or sometimes
So-
it's something like COVID. Like COVID happens, you can have the
there
best
is-
product, it
there-
fails.
Yeah. But still, when it comes to challenges like that, then digital products have a upper hand as compared to them, because they are not impacted. They are
100%.
even having a boom, like in the COVID era. Zoom and all these meeting companies were having a boom. They
Yeah.
were having the
So
upper hand.
I think the flip side of that is
Mhm.
that allows everybody to launch their tech brand.
Yeah, that is also
So
there.
there is pros and cons of both the scenarios. Like I'll give you a really good example. Now,
Sure.
when it comes to scaling your FMCG product to US, completely different ball game. Now you have to get your FDA approvals. You have to have completely different packaging. You have to have lawyers involved. You have to get the nutrition testing and the making sure the product is following all the laws and of that particular country wherever you want to scale. But if I'm here, I have a tech product and I want to sell it in the US, I don't have to go through all of those hoops. Or maybe the hoops are much lesser. So, and I can do that within a month, 2 month, one financial quarter max. With FMCG brands, now I have to redo the whole photo shoot with American models. Now I have to find a warehouse in America where I will put all these products. Now I have to convince Walmart to place my products. And now I have to do so many things, which is a different challenge. So again, both of these face different challenges. There are more tech brands, like there are like hundreds of tech brands which open up every day. So for their facing is how do they stand out in a very cluttered market? For FMCG, the clutter is there, but not so much as compared to a tech brand. So the challenges which both of them face are like extremely different. But I was able to put my skill set at a much better use when it comes to FMCG compared to tech.
Okay. So that was a lot of insight on FMCG. And we will circle back on that in a while. Coming back
100%.
to your story and your decision of like your experience of doing masters and all. So you mentioned that when you came back to India before starting Confetti, you were a designer, a creative director in a startup. So tell us about that experience. What do you think has changed from that time as compared to now?
So at that time, we used to, I'll give you background about what is it that we used to do. So you can understand the moving pieces. So at that time, we used to work in a brand which made processors and sensors for vertical farming. So we used to make cameras, we used to make we used to make mobile applications, web apps, and sensors to help farmers or owners of these vertical farms to understand when a plant is going bad, when a plant is going good, and just like overall surveillance of a complete big vertical farm. So that's what we used to do. So at that time, because I was a creative director, and only for the name sake, I was not doing anything which a creative director is supposed to. I was doing hands-on work. I did not have a team of people working under me. So the different part compared to today's time versus back then was I was doing everything hands-on. I did not have too many people to convince. And I could go really deep into one particular subject and one particular problem statement, which was vertical farms. So I used to I used to use softwares like Onshape and SolidWorks to create the 3D cameras. So that is something which I had to do. I had to do UI UX design for the website completely from scratch. Had to do complete branding and any sort of marketing material for the same brand. So I was doing a lot of small things, but everything was done hands-on, all the way from making the ID cards of the company. So I was doing everything from designing the camera to making the ID card. Everything was done by the single designer. And eventually, because I was the only designer and we realized that there are too many moving pieces, the founder, so it was an American company. So we used to only talk to the founder once every day in the last hour from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., something like that. So that founder allowed me to start hiring some people. And that was the first hiring experience I've ever had. So we started hiring some interns for motion graphics, for websites, for graphic design work, all of that. And that is, I think, something really great because at the age of 22, 23, I was already interviewing people. I was already mentoring people. And because it was not a freelance position or it was not an agency position, I did not fear what if something goes wrong. Because now it's not my money which is at stake. So that company gave me a really good foundation to take risks. So I was able to mentor people and still get paid. And nowadays, if there is somebody at the age of 22, 23, if they get interns or if they get designers working under them, it's a massive risk because if you're a freelancer or an agency owner, it's your money which is at stake. So I think for anybody, starting with a job, I think sometimes is really useful because you can brush up on the skills which you would not have otherwise. So once I started Confetti, I already knew how to hire people, how to recruit people, how to negotiate for salaries, how to work with American clients, how to work with Indian founders. Those sort of things were already taught to me within my first job. And yeah, and I think that would be it. But from that experience to now, it's completely different. Now we have all of these departments and I have head of departments under graphic design, under web design, under marketing, for HR, for sales. We have different teams and different departments. So now my work is almost no longer related to design. It's a lot more design strategy and hands-on design is completely like zero. And I think that's a good thing to sort of have because it shows that you're progressing in your career because not everybody would want to be a hands-on designer unless you like really love it and that's what you want to do. So it's the complete polar opposite from what I used to do like 5 years back in my very first job.
Yeah, that was interesting. I would say I have this this phrase that I speak every time I guess to speak something. That it was interesting because every time I ask something, everyone is speaking, and even you were telling something really interesting. So all the viewers and listeners, if you think it is weird, please let me know. So yeah, moving
Sure.
ahead, yeah, you mentioned is a lot of interesting things, but one thing I would like to understand that you mentioned, I think from my perspective, that particular job where you have to do a lot of things, like literally everything from designing a camera to a ID card, it gave you a lot of experience that must have helped you to start your own agency. That can be that.
Yeah, but I think back then I was not actually thinking of starting my own agency.
So yeah, that is the next question. What made you start Confetti? That is the biggest question. I think you must have been asked this particular thing. But tell me something different that you haven't talked about or even thought about. Like what was the thing that made you start Confetti?
Sure. So actually I was growing up, so I grew up in a business family. So
Okay.
I already have this inclination that okay, I want to do something eventually of my own. Maybe an agency, maybe go back to family business, but something related to a business, not a job. But when I post-COVID, in my job back then, so I was the senior UI UX designer for another tech company. So at that time we had a game that we were designing. So that particular company pretty much forced me to work 10-hour days, 9-hour days, 11-hour days, sometimes over Saturdays as well. So all of that was happening. Now I realized that okay, if I'm doing so much, okay, shouldn't I just like put all of this time, energy, and effort and like do something of my own? So I talked to like a couple of people who were in business. So one advice which they gave me, if you want to start an agency, even if you're not sure, start putting the building blocks of it in your current job itself. So I actually told my boss back then that, hey, I want to actually start freelance on the side, but I'll not let, the work that I'm doing for your brand be hampered. That I'll take care of completely. So that's something which the founder actually allowed me to do. Not many founders are like so chill with that. And another advice which I was given was, even if you start your agency and you fail, let's say you fail after 22 years and you realize that this is not for you, at that time you would still be 27. So if you want to take a risk, this is a much better time to take risk compared to, let's say, taking a risk when you have a lot more people who are financially dependent on you. So at that time, nobody was financially dependent on me. And I was like, okay, I'll just like have a freelance career alongside my full-time job. And I still remember I had my first project, like first proper freelance project, in which I designed a complete mobile application for an e-commerce client. And the client paid me 35,000 for that. For a complete, like in-depth, really good, like mobile application that I designed. And I was really proud. I was like, oh, this is very good. So I was like, I can even continue this thing alongside my full-time job. And then I realized that if I have to sustain this, I have to have a team of people who is designing alongside me. I can't be the only one designing. So I shared that with the founder of that job, that, hey, I want to like take this freelance thing and this agency thing a bit more seriously. And the founder was actually pretty chill. So he became our first agency client. So even when I left the company, they did not hire anybody new. They were like, okay, you were working on this before. Now we will give this task to your agency so that you're still involved. Okay. So that gave us some sort of a buffer that, okay, on day one, we had a good recurring retainer sort of a client, which was paying us like somewhere around 1 lakh a month on a monthly basis. And that kept the ball rolling for the first few months for me and the 2 other full-time employees that I hired. So the interesting thing about Confetti is that ever since day one, it was laid in the foundation that we want to hire people and we don't want to do everything on our own. So on day one, we had 2 employees and I was not paying myself anything, and I was actually paying the employees all the capital that was coming in. So that is the foundation. And again, Confetti did not start as a branding and packaging agency, but it started out as a UI UX agency. And then over time, we pivoted and we realized where exactly is the problem statement. And once we finalized the problem statement about the FMCG market, then we just like put all hands on deck and just like started doubling down on the graphic design and branding and then e-commerce websites, marketing, all of these departments.
Yeah, I think everyone has something like that. Ki kuch karna hai, apna kuch alag karna hai. So I think that must have been your story also. But
when was that for you, by the way? I would love to know, like, when was that for you?
For me, I am doing it.
Like, when was the moment? When was the moment? Okay, I don't want to do a job anymore.
I never wanted to do a job, but I have always I have to do a job because I have to grow. I have to learn. I am not some person who is coming from a design school or a education background. So in my whole experience, whatever I have learned is in job and like working on hands-on and watching tutorials. But watching tutorials is not going to help me do some work in the real world. So job is a stepping stone for me. I never thought of, I never think of planning to stay in a job. Even in the future, I might go again for a job. But when I will tell you about the recent job that I resigned. That when I was in this company, that I was seeing the whole process. I am very young. I was 22. I'm seeing all the process. It's around like last year in December I came here. I am seeing the process. I'm seeing the clients. I'm seeing a lot of things that is going on in the agency, in the studio. I have been doing freelancing for the last 4 years from the day one of designing. The career started from freelancing. I was thinking like, bro, this is so bad. This is so wrong. I can do this better. I'm like, who taught you all this? And why do you do this kind of thing? Like literally the basics of a designer of a freelancer, they were not following and they're calling themselves an agency. It might be very subjective because I haven't worked at a lot of good places or big places or big agencies, but still that thing like if it might be very weird to say, but if this person can do it, why can't I? That was the whole idea. And that person It's doing good, but still, that was the whole idea. That was the main thing. I was waiting for my college to get over. The month of May 2024, college got over. I got my final semester. I was given a privilege of not going to give exam. So I got 9 CGPA just because I was having a job, and I published a research paper of one branding project that I did. It is still out
Mm,
there on the internet, on the journal. So I think on that particular journal website, that will be the only design project as a research paper. So it is there.
mm.
And I got a very good 9 CGPA for that. So I'd like, chalo, job हो गया, college complete. 22 May college complete, resign next month. I'm like, I was waiting
Got
for the
so
moment that I college got completed. Yeah.
now how long has it been?
So it is like, I would say three,
Six,
four
seven
months,
months.
4 months.
Okay,
Yeah,
4 months.
yeah, 4 5 months, I would say. I'm not
Acha.
counting, but yeah, I think so.
Mm.
It was in,
What do you think?
some
Like,
like,
do you think when the experience that you had with that job,
hmm,
like you mentioned that the process that they had was not the best one,
hmm.
but anything which like you had as a key takeaway from that job, that okay, at
I,
least this thing I got to learn.
this will be very controversial. I hope nobody gets offended. But in that whole experience, I got to know what not to do as a founder, as
Mm.
a designer. I
I
understood
think
कि ये नहीं
that's,
करना है भाई.
but I think that's also very good to learn.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
think what not to do is
definitely.
a lot more important
Hmm.
than what to do sometimes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that. Even I'm doing freelancing, I might go for a job at a better place or a better agency or even a big agency. Even I'm planning, like as I mentioned, I want to do masters. I am planning to get out of India. That is sure for sure. Rather it be for a masters or just to move out of India or just to get into a job but out of India. That that is subjective. That happens every time, whatever it happens.
Mm.
So that's the whole idea. And doing a job out of India in I'm not sure, like that is a pentagram is a dream. But if I get there or something, some agencies like that, it will be like that same thing that happened with you in the masters 0 to 100. I might definitely go through that stage. So job is always one thing for me, stepping stone, learn, move on. But that is again subjective thing.
Mm.
So coming back to you are
Mhm.
the host, you are the guest, I am the
Uh,
host. So
no,
coming
no, it's
back to
okay,
the
man.
topic, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, sure. So you were talking about your experience and how you transition from confetti. Tell us about the story behind the name confetti. I would like to know this. This is very cool to
Actually,
speak about. Tell the word confetti.
the audio is no longer there. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. So tell us about the story behind the name confetti. It is very cool to
Acha.
speak about it.
So, now, man, so the name actually did not,
Hmm.
it's not like a genius of a name. So one of the things which I just want, when I was thinking about the name, earlier it was called Rishabh Jain Designs. So that was the earlier proprietorship that I was running. Rishabh Jain Designs,
Hmm.
pretty simple. Then I was talking to the trademark lawyer, and it's like, okay,
Hmm.
give me four, or five words in that order of priority. Now, when I was thinking about the names, I was thinking around what are some metaphoric names that I can come up with. And confetti as a name stood out really well because there are two meanings to it. The first one is every client is like, oh, your designs, they should pop, and
Oh.
designs are not popping. They look very simple, they look very basic or
Hmm.
whatever. So it was like a play on that sort of a me that, okay, make your designs pop. That plus the second meaning of that is as a metaphor, it confetti is something that you pop when your brand achieves something or when you achieve something or when there is a celebratory moment. So I thought, okay, confetti is an interesting name because it's memorable, it's easy to spell, easy to speak. There is no misinterpretation. Nobody would speak it in a different sort of manner. There is no chance of spelling mistakes or anything. And it has two really good metaphoric meaning. One for the designers, which is make your designs
Hmm.
pop, and one for the clients, which is become successful. And surprisingly, when I looked on GoDaddy, I was really blown away that okay, confetti as a name is like not thought about. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll just buy this domain. And at that time,
Uh,
I think this was the most expensive investment back then. So we purchased that domain for like close to
hmm.
1 lakh rupees. And
Okay.
this is back when we had no clients. But at no clients, we got that domain for like 1 lakh rupees. Okay,
Hmm.
we'll get that. So we had two options, either confetti.in or
Hmm.
confetti.design. So I was talking to some people and they recommended me, okay, if you want to stay in India only and be perceived as an Indian agency, then .in is okay. But by .design, in the grand scheme of things, you would not realize how good of an investment this would be. So it's like, okay, we have no clients, but I'll trust your opinion. We bought Confetti.design for close to 1 lakh. And yeah, man, and that was it.
It is a very unique domain. Like, I don't know, people don't have that, but people think that .design or something else will be very weird or very hard to find. But that is something that makes the brand unique. That is
Yeah,
like,
Confetti.design.
yeah, exactly. Like, people always tend towards .in, .com, and .com goes as expensive as it can. So
Yeah. .com was there for like, they were selling .com. They told us that the approximate cost for .com is like somewhere around 17 lakhs or 18 lakhs. So like, it doesn't make sense, man.
yeah. I have my, like, I'm very lucky that I chose a very weird name, VYRus.Visuals. That is something coming from my gaming history. I'm a gamer. I still am gamer, but I never, like, I don't get some time. But that
Valorant.
was my, no, not Valorant, the story mode games, like Black Myth Wukong, like kind of games.
अच्छा RDR.
हाँ, not RDR हो गया, GTA सीरीज हो गया, like story mode. इसमें कोई डिस्टर्ब करना नहीं आ रहा. You are the person playing with NPCs and having a very good story. God of War is on my top. Spider-Man, Miles Morales is on the second, like top 3 में. So all these stuffs I used to play. That coming from that. So I got my username, like my domain name, for like 1,000 or 2,000 for a year, and that is going on. I don't think there is any problem with that.
So how is that related to gaming, by the way?
It is my name. I just got a weird name. Yeah, Vaibhav Yadav Rishu. VY.
Okay. That makes sense. I was like, okay,
उसके बाद दिमाग ही नहीं लगा
समझ में आ रहा है.
Yeah. I think, see, there is a very, very long backstory. Like, when I was in class 6, I saw there was a senior भैया थे मेरे बगल के who used to have his name सौरभ यादव अंशु. तो उनको देख के मैंने कॉपी कर लिया, वैभव यादव ऋषु, मेरा घर का नाम ऋषु. So from that it came, and then it is going on. A lot of people have told me to change it. It is not professional. उनके कोई बात नहीं, that is me. Professional बना देंगे इसको.
हाँ, I don't professional का कुछ, I don't think it makes sense. Like,
and this era of being personal and personal branding में क्या professional करना है? लोग अब और connect करना चाहते हैं. Like, people are moving away from this massive social media. They want to, like, do activities that are very general, very basic. Walking, sightseeing. ये सब चीजें अब luxury हो चुका है.
हाँ, so I think that's a good name, man. Like, and I think there are even crazier names which I can't remember right away. There were like several friends I had back in my college days who are now having their own freelance career, and some of them have like really weird like personal branding names, but it works because that's the sort of audience that they want to invite. They want to invite, let's say, a lot more casual, informal founders who are not looking for that serious personality.
Exactly.
So I think as long as it connects, if it's like, imagine somebody like, okay, VYRus, and then you have a call and then the person is like in suit and tie. So that disconnect is something which I think would break the consistency. But if it's something like VYRus and they're expecting a relatively relaxed, laid back sort of call, laid back sort of approach. But as long as, the results can be in short for them, not that, okay, laid back mein.
Yeah, people have told me that they will definitely remember my name because I always go with VYRus. I'm like, how do you pronounce this? How do you speak this? I'm like, I'm Vaibhav. That is my pen name, or you can say business name. I might get a business name with that. Who knows? But let's see how it happens. So you mentioned, like, coming back to the topic, you mentioned that you pivoted a lot when you started Confetti. If I'm not wrong, it was you also mentioned I was following Confetti since back then, when you were posting UI UX projects and even case studies and breakdowns of Netflix and Amazon Prime kind of videos and apps. Even I commented to you, I love that because as a designer, it is very fascinating to understand these things. So, how many times did you pivot and what made you pivot all these few times?
So, I don't even think that like pivots are so quantifiable because a lot of times pivots are, these are like gradual, like small, very gradual turns. And eventually realize that, oh, I have like come like such a long way. So, but if I have to talk to you about two major pivots that we've made, the first one was actually introducing graphic design as a service.
Okay.
So I remember the first branding project that we did. So that was for a crypto project back when crypto and NFTs were really popular. So that's when we had our first branding project for which we charged 35,000 rupees. And now that I look back at it, it's like, okay, my first UI UX project was also 35,000. My first branding
35.
project was also 35,000. So 35,000 is like that
Yeah.
entry level like project, because we did not have any case studies and the client was just taking up a risk on us. So that was the first big sort of step that we took, that okay, let's introduce this new service. And I think the second pivot, or the second big decision that we took was, okay, now let's only do branding and packaging for retail and FMCG brands. But in the journey, there were like much smaller turns, which is like took us to the right path. But these are the two turns that we took. So the first decision to introduce graphic design, that was taken 6 months into the journey. Not even 6 months, I think, 3 to 4 months in the journey, we took the decision to introducing graphic design. And the other decision of FMCG only, that we took maybe 1 year, 1.5 years into the journey of, okay, these are the people that we really want to work with and we can actually solve the problem better than some other freelancers who might be able to.
So pivoting is important, I would say. Like, it is
100%.
inevitable. You can't escape that. Yeah, you will grow. You will
Like you
understand
can escape
things.
it, but then you will no longer exist.
That is also there. So in all these experiences of pivoting, you must have something that made you like, I want to achieve this particular thing. So let's suppose that we all understand that is as a North Star. So what has been your North Star? Like, I want to go in that direction. I want to build Confetti, such kind of studio, or such kind to like solve such kind of problems. Have you had something like that?
I have, but I don't think there is an existing agency, or even if there is, I'm not aware of that, which does what our vision is. So my vision is to turn design into a sort of science, which allows clients to get consistent results in the shortest time possible. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, there are two brands and two agencies. Agency 1 changes the branding and packaging project for every client. Agency 2 has a really structured and methodological process which they have created over a span of 100 projects, almost like a doctor would have a knee operation. So there is no deviation from one knee operation to the other. Now there might be subtle deviations when you're operating the knee of a child versus knee of an elderly person. But the core science remains the same. The nuances might change, but the science remains the same. So my vision with Confetti is to build that sort of an agency and system in place, which allows the brand to get consistent results always. That is what a doctor does. Like if you're a good doctor, that means you have 100% success rate. Like let's say with the knee surgeon operation, like example, if you're somebody who has if you're a doctor with, let's say, 50% or 75% or 80% success rate, that will not work. If like you have to have 99.9999% success rate. So that is what we want to build at Confetti. How can we ensure highest success rate consistently in the shortest amount of time? And the shortest amount of time is really critical here, because within FMCG, the rate at which some other brand can copy your product is really high. So especially if you're a founder, if you're a founder of a startup, there is nothing which is stopping a Unilever or an ITC or a P&G to come copy your successful product and just launch it. So how can we move really fast and help our clients move really fast? So that is what we're trying to build in a consistent and cost-effective manner. And yeah, but in terms of the Indian design landscape, I'm at least with the agencies that I see myself surrounded with, I'm not aware if this sort of approach is something an agency, any other agency is actually looking into. But this is what our North Star is.
That is interesting. Talking about North Star, if we keep agency aside, if we keep Confetti aside, like as a Rishabh, as an individual, as a Rishabh Jain, what do you think your North Star is? Do you have any exit strategy that I would chill or relax?
I would not say an exit strategy related to Confetti. But I think personally, there is one book that I've read, and if there is any founder or anybody who's in self-growth, I would highly recommend this book. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio. So this concept might be relatively difficult to explain, in a short sort of duration. But the book talks about evolution. and how nature wants evolution. And species which don't evolve, they died out. So look at people, like we evolved from like monkeys, early men, hunter-gatherer, so on and so forth to what we are now. So I think the North Star which I have for myself is more along the lines of evolution than a final destination. And I think as we evolve, our destination and the goalpost also changes. Like there are, like when I was in college, I was like, oh, if I have a job of like 1 lakh rupees per month, I have made it. I achieved that and realized, oh, this is not giving me the kick. Oh, maybe I need to have a job of 2 lakhs a month. Oh, that is not working for me. And then I realized, oh, physical workout is working really well for me. And then realized that, okay, that gave me really, high level of satisfaction. Eventually, I realized that, okay, let me launch my own mentorship program, Road to 10X, so that the journey that I've had with the growth of my agency, I can actually share it with other people and help them grow as well. So that gave me immense energy. But then eventually, that was taking so much of my time, and I had to like eventually put it to pause. So I think as we evolve, the goalpost also changes. So if I have to give some very high level principles of where I want to be, I think I really want to contribute in teaching design or teaching freelancers or teaching other agency owners. That is something where I want to be involved in because it makes me feel very good. I want to have whatever sort of business ventures that I have in a very decentralized manner. So I like if somebody has read 4 hour work week, then they would know that biggest reason why agencies sort of fail is because the founder is running around and putting too much of the time in every department. That the founder is the HR and the accountant and the business person and the designer, everything. So that has been a very fixed principle with me that we want to hire people, we want to build teams, we want to delegate the work and actually have a very powerful system. And just this month, in the month of September, we've hired a total of 9 employees. And that's a crazy number if I look at like even from a tech startup point of view. Like, okay, hiring 9 people, especially in a bootstrap sort of an agency. So I don't have a certain destination, but I have some principles that I want to ensure my team has. So decentralization, creating a team which runs with me or without me, because it gives you 2 benefits. Number 1, if you ever want to sell your business, you can sell it because the business is not running on you. Business is a very separate entity which is working on autopilot. And in case you don't want to sell your business, that is even fine. You can let that business run on autopilot by only spending 3 to 4 hours a day on that. So I don't believe in something like passive income. I believe even if you have an agency which is completely decentralized, spending a couple of hours, 1 or 2 hours every day is good enough. So decentralization gives you best of both worlds. Want to sell your business? Perfect. Want to not sell your business but want to start another business? Perfect. Because this business was only taking 2 hours per day. So these are certain things which I want to make sure that we have. And the last thing is having something which is geography independent. Because when I was really young, I thought that, oh, I want to live in Delhi my whole life. Because at that time, Delhi used to be the peak of our imagination. That okay, Delhi mein hai to badhiya hai. Eventually, that place became London because that is where I was doing my masters. Now that place is Dubai. Now the world, either because of political reasons or tech reasons or financial reasons, is changing so rapidly. I don't want to fix myself to a business which I can only operate from within one country. So Confetti as a business or Road to 10X as a business or any other thing that I do as a business, I just want to make sure that it has these 3-4 principles. Decentralization can work with me only working on it for 2 to 3 hours and is completely flexible when it comes to a country point of view. So these would be a couple of North Stars that I have.
Those were very great North Stars, I would say. Like usually people never think about that. And I think this will help a lot of founders and designers who might become a founder in the future. So even I never thought about, like, I understand how important decentralization is, but never thought about the geography part. And I think because of you making it all remote. Confetti is all remote. I've heard. On the other hand, there are mostly like all the top agencies or studios in terms of design are having a studio or having an office. Why did you never do that? Why? What made you keep it all remote?
Hmm. So actually, there was
Mm.
a 6 month, 7 month period when we had our physical
Mhm.
office. So we had two physical offices, one in Noida and one in Bangalore.
Mm.
And eventually, we realized that, and again, it might differ from company to company, but we realized that at the stage that we were in and the pace at which we wanted to grow, I could not handle a scenario where people are coming at 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. Oh, there is traffic in Bangalore, something which even they can't solve, I can't solve.
Mm.
And then it was becoming worst for the employees because even if they left their home at 8:39, they were reaching office by 10:30. The work used to start slow. There were 10 other distractions, and they had to leave office because they started the work late. They had to finish the work. So the work used to finish at 8 o'clock. They have to reach their home at then 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock,
Mm.
and then almost no time to do anything else. So after running this experiment for 6 months, we had the feedback for the employees as well that they want to go back to the remote sort of setup, and it allowed them to save some money. It allowed
Mm.
us to hire people instantly. So all the 9 people that we hired, if this was a physical
Mm.
office, then these people would not be in my company today. They would be there after 1 month after they have done the relocation and all that.
Yeah.
So it's working really well for big companies because at that time, like at this stage, they can afford to do that. They can afford to have a designer join. Okay, don't join now, join 1 month later after you're done with the relocation.
Mm.
Or they can afford to open up several offices. They can afford to have several HR or several managers in each office. Because a lot of these agencies, you have to realize, also have multiple founders.
Mm.
Confetti is barely 3 years old as an agency.
Okay.
And at 3 years old, we already have a team of 25, 27 people with one founder. So it's sort of, and we're like growing rapidly. So we can't afford to have a scenario where, you know, we can't wait for people to join after 1 month, after 2 months. It's okay,
Mm.
you join us within 1 week or 2 weeks at max. We get everything set up. It allows us to save a lot of time. So there are people in my company who are working from 8 a.m., which they would not be able to do if we had to
Mm.
request them to, come to the office physically. Yeah. So I think to answer your question about how a lot of companies, the bigger ones around us, they're working on site. I think it works because that's the sort of context of growth that they're in.
Okay.
We're like, we're very young when it comes to rapid growth. We can't accept a 10% annual growth or
Mm.
5% month on month growth. That's something which is something we can't accept. At this stage, we have to grow rapidly. Uh, and we realized after running that 6 month test that I'd rather hire 3 more designers or 2 more designers than pay office rent for 1 month. And
Yeah.
those sort of things, like everything
Mm.
sort of comes into picture because at that time, and a lot of agencies at this stage are in that survival mode. The bigger
Mm.
agencies at this point are not in the survival mode. For us back then, like 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, everything that we could collect and pinch, we used to use that and put it to hiring better talent. So we are not funded, we're completely bootstrapped. And now that we have crossed the survival stage,
Mm.
now I can actually think about, okay, let's, get a couple of co-working spaces so that if somebody is not willing to work at their house for some reason, some construction work is happening, some disturbance is
Mm.
there, they can just join that co-working space and work from there. But would not make working from a physical office compulsory. We have
Ah.
several people who have joined us from really big agencies with
Mm.
one single reason that Rishabh, they want us to come to the office. So we are leaving that company. So I would not want to leave,
Mm.
talent like that. That, okay, yeah, we're having complete physical work. You have to come or you leave. So for an agency like us, it's
Mm.
really good. Okay, continue like pulling these people, to the
Mm.
office. But when they leave, it's really good that we are able to get access to such good talent.
Yeah, it is kind of a cutting cost on the side of renting an office space and
100%
putting that
is.
money aside and investing in good talents. I asked
Hmm.
this question because of my past experience where I was like, not I, even everyone was forced to come to the office 4 days a week. I think it is now 5 days a week, and it is compulsory that you have to be in the office. They're being a lot of strict now, and I've seen other not companies, agencies who are into design space. They are asking their employees to come back to office to on a daily basis, and this thing is happening. Like the fact that you mentioned that going to the office at 8 a.m. in the morning, coming back at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., having no time to do anything else. It is a reality
Mm.
right now, and people are not willing to change that. They think that people who are going to work from home are not will not be responsible. I think again
Mm.
it will be subjected to the founder or how the agency is running. But I'm glad that you are offering this particular
Yeah.
benefit. Yeah.
I'll give you one really good argument for
Okay.
work from home.
Hmm.
Like, so the argument which is, say, in case your job actually requires you to be on site, let's say it's an
Hmm.
architectural agency,
Hmm.
and you have to actually build something, you have to build prototypes, you have to 3D print
Hmm.
stuff, and we can't have 3D printer in every person's house. Makes sense. But
Hmm.
in case you're doing something like, let's say, UI UX design or brand identity design, something which can be done remotely as well. The argument which is for physical office space
Hmm.
is usually what? That you would not be able to collaborate if you're working remotely. That you physically work, only then you will be able to collaborate. In that case, why are you not asking the clients to also come to the office? Because we also have to collaborate with
Hmm.
the clients. So if the client can
Yeah.
collaborate us with, if the client can collaborate with
Hmm.
us remotely, then why can't
Hmm.
the designers work with designers remotely? Collaboration is required in both areas. Designers to
Hmm.
like designer and client relationship also requires collaboration. Designer and designer relation
Hmm.
also requires collaboration. So collaboration as an argument that okay, it allows you to collaborate, that's a flawed argument. Collaboration is why I want to work remotely. There are a lot of agencies which I know opt for physical work because it allows them to micromanage, but I'd rather build independent thinkers and leaders within my team. So we don't have to micromanage, but actually people are uh, self-sufficient and self-monitoring. And you can do that with incentives. If there is an incentive that, hey, you meet certain milestones and we'll give you X percentage of the profit, you don't have to micromanage. Like, there might be certain instances where some people are not working, but that's like, if there is somebody who doesn't want to work, you can't get them to work in a physical office either. That's a person
Yeah.
issue. That's not a
Yeah.
remote work or on-site issue. That's a person issue in that case.
I hope founders understand this because I've seen a lot of founders just like, no, you have to come to the office. We cannot trust you. You will not work at home.
Mm.
You will not be punctual and all. I'm like, bro,
That's a
people
slippery
will
slope.
not.
That's,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah. Then how can the client trust you? Because for the client, you are
yeah.
working remotely.
Talking about the client developer part, yeah, I remembered that this episode from Abstract about Paula Shah. She is working with the designers in the Putnam office, and the client is coming and looking at all the iterations which are put at that stage and all. So that
Exactly.
makes sense. Then there is
Huh,
a
like
series, yeah.
in case you seriously
Hmm.
believe that on-site work is
Hmm.
required for collaboration, that makes
Hmm.
sense. Then have it both way. Okay,
Yeah.
now you are a company which is like
Hmm.
this is one of your policies, fair enough.
Hmm.
But again, at that stage when you're let's say somebody like Pentagram, you're not in
Hmm.
the survival mode.
Exactly.
Like for a lot of agencies, like they start and they die down within the first 3 years. So we have to just make sure that we're able to ride that wave of okay, let's just
Hmm.
get rid of survival mode, have enough cash in the bank that we can, sustain ourselves even in a
Hmm.
physical office. And then I think having physical office is good because it gives a much better company culture.
Hmm.
Uh, but when you don't have, let's say if there is a young founder who is listening to this, if
Hmm.
you don't have bills to pay the salaries of these employees, then company culture will not help you. So company culture
Hmm.
is a good to have, not a must have. Must have is actually have the money to pay these people. So once you have cleared out the must have, once you have six
Hmm.
months of running cost in your bank account, then focus on company culture as well. But that can't be the first thing that you're doing that, oh, now employees are making jokes and employees are making friends with each other. So this is good. But Pentagram and all, they bring the clients and at least it's consistent. That okay,
Hmm.
collaboration के लिए on-site आना है.
Hmm.
Then the client is also on-site and you are also on-site.
Yeah, they have this rule. Okay, everything will be on site. You mentioned that
Hmm.
the agency dies in 1 and 3 year in the initial 3 years. Tell us about that. Why do you think so, and what is the biggest mistake that happens? that makes the
So
agency die. Yeah.
so uh, I'll tell you the biggest, like, why do I think so? Because I've seen that, like, with a lot of people who used to apply for a Road to 10X program. We used to take a look at their finances and the trajectory at which they're going. And just like from anecdotal perspective as well, people who have started agencies then gone back to physical, like, gone back to like a full-time job. So that's something which we've seen. If I have to talk about the reason, then there are multiple reasons. The biggest one I would say is, it's a very umbrella sort of a reason, but that is mindset. There are too many founders either with, not either, I think with the wrong mindset when they enter their agency business. And that wrong mindset takes them into really dark paths or bad paths. For example, wrong mindset or a scarcity mindset would allow you to never take or never pick a niche, because you will have the fear that, oh, if I take the niche, I will only work with XYZ clients. What I don't want to lose out on 10 other industries. Fear. Negative mindset of, oh, nobody would pay 10 lakh rupees for a branding project. These are certain stories and certain negative mindsets and certain negative beliefs that we just like instill in ourselves, which eventually reflect in our business. And something which my mentor used to tell me, Matt SM, he used to tell me that your business will be a very good reflection of the mental state that you're in. And I've seen that. In case I personally am very distracted, I am switching between YouTube tabs, between meetings, doing all of this, I see that my business gets affected. So business is simply a reflection of what your mental state is. If I'm coming from a scarcity point of view, my business and my bank balance will reflect that. I will be super scared of asking anybody, oh, I want to charge 10 lakh rupees for a branding project. So I think that is one of those pieces. Eventually, it has that domino effect of people accepting, let's say, mediocre work or over-promising, under-delivering. Like, these are certain, like, very fundamental things that people, if they start solving, like, okay, I will not over-promise and under-deliver. I will either under-promise and over-deliver, so that at least I can have a very sustainable referral cycle. So it's the fundamentals. It's that 80-20 rule. 80% of your growth can be there because of 20% of the things. People are not willing to do the 20% things, and they end up doing the other 80% fancy things. That, oh, I'll make my personal brand. When you don't have like any idea of, like, let's say, what to do on a sales call, what to do on like all of these pieces when you actually landed client, or you get so fearful, or you overpromise and underdeliver, in that cases, a personal brand will not help you out. So there are people who chase that final, like, shiny thing. They will get an office space. They will create an Instagram account, will spend 10 months or 1 year on a website, because they think, oh, we're an agency, our website has to be fancy. Confetti's personal website is not fancy at all. It's functional. Like, we're planning to change it, but that's for like technical reasons, not for like aesthetic reasons. But there are so many designers who put themselves in these bad sort of paths that, oh, our website needs to be good. And they would spend months and months on their website, rather spend months and months to improve your offering, or take a decision on the niche, or create a better team, or create better SOPs, instead of spending so much time and effort on your website animation. People spend their time and energy to do the other 80% and not the fundamental 20%. And that's something which I've seen massively even with like experienced agency founders. Because the more experience that you get, then there is this thing of, oh, why should I listen to somebody younger than me? So I've talked to people who are like 35, 37, running a not so successful agency with 3 or 4 employees. And then the concept of ageism comes in. That, oh, how can you mentor me when you have experience of 3 years of running an agency and I have 15, 16 years? It's like, fair enough. But then continue to do what you're doing right now. I will not, I can't help you if you're not willing to help yourself. So these are certain negative mindset traps which people actually fall themselves.
That makes sense. That 80-20 rule, that Pareto principle also applies in everything, like in freelancing, in a project, in everything, almost everything. Like in a branding projects, 80% things is like looking forward about like what to do, how to do. And then when it comes to implementation, it is like just hands-on task. I feel like
Exactly.
yeah, in a branding project, if I have to do, if I charge like 2.5 lakhs, so I am having like uh so like as an individual, I'm having enough profit that I can sustain on a single project for like 3 months, and that I'm okay, I will be really happy with everything that I can spend easily. So, and that happens just with that 20% of the efforts. But to get to the 20%, we have to take care of that 80 also. We cannot ignore that, but not focus on all the energy on that key.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
there are several people who are like solo founders or really
Hmm.
like everybody has 24 hours.
Hmm.
So you can only do so much
Hmm.
and within these 24 hours, and the other 80% is very flashy. Having a very good looking website, very good looking XYZ, those things are very flashy. But when a discovery call actually happens, you have no idea what they're talking about. They don't have any idea what you're talking about. You can't ask any good questions. You can't explain your services to them. Then a flashy website would only take you so far. So it's a good marketing channel. But once the person actually comes down the marketing funnel, then again the 20% kicks in. And if you don't have a good foundation of that 20%, then a fancy website would only help you generate leads, but not close them. So eventually you don't have that sale. You have just a good amount of
Yeah.
leads because your website looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about the funnel, you have to make sure that everything is on point and perfect. Like perfect, not 100%,
Huh.
but it is functional.
Yeah,
Then there are these terms tofu, mofu, and bofu, all these stuff. It kind of sounds very technical, but it is just the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom. You have to take care of all these three things because nothing is going to like who is going to close a lead if you are not having a good solid offering.
exactly.
If you can't solve a problem, then who is going to pay you 10 lakhs for a
Yeah,
branding
and
project?
nobody will refer you
Ye-
afterwards. Like you might be able to land one
exactly.
odd deal here or
Yeah.
there, but if you
Hmm.
can't solve a problem, then they will not even refer you to somebody else. So it's a very
Exactly.
short-sighted thing of, oh, we're
Hmm.
running an agency. This is what we always wanted to do. Now let me
Hmm.
spend some time on the website. We'll make it very good looking so that every other designer loves my website. But when the person is actually paying you money,
Hmm.
then the love is very short-lived. Then they want to
Yeah.
see some sort of ROI on that.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned that the ageism, the gap of age, in terms of experience and knowledge. And so the fact that you shared that there is a 35-year-old who is struggling with his agency, there are people who is 20 years old, 18 years old, making $40,000, $50,000 a month, and they are happy with that. They're cracking it. They know a lot of stuff. So
Hmm.
I think age is just a number right now in this current scenario. If you are investing 2 3
100%.
years in a specific niche and you are very honest about like as you mentioned that you realize that you are not a good designer and then transition to a founder and got into strategy. On the same side, if there is a founder who knows that he is bad at the strategy part and all those stuff in the management part, but he still is trying to do and thinking that he is good, that is the
Hmm.
biggest red flag and the biggest downfall moment
So
of that agency.
yeah, so it's that's the
Yeah.
Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Okay.
Like Dunning-Kruger effect basically being
Mm.
people who don't know what they don't know think that they know everything. So
Uh,
like
mm.
if like for example right now I have no idea of my
Mm.
10-year or 20-year goal.
Mm.
I have certain principles, but I don't know because the world is changing so rapidly. Somebody who's like, oh, I already know exactly what I want in 20 years. I want this, and I want a house in this. I want my salary to be this.
Mm.
And then it becomes a bit more difficult to convince that person because that person has this monologue running that, okay, I know everything. So then after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even I give up that, okay, fair enough. You know everything, then clearly I can't contribute to you because even if I do, you will not be listening to me. And again, not to say that the way Confetti runs is perfect, but if there is somebody who can take some genuine help, then, and there are some tangible proofs of that. Not to say that, okay, trust me because I think I'm good. If there are tangible proofs of how I have been able to help other people, if I have been able to help myself, my agency grow. So it's not a leap of faith. It's not a leap of faith. It's more of an informed decision that, okay, this person, if this person can do this for himself, for 20 other people, okay, then there is some sort of a credible proof. Let me actually execute it, and follow his advice. Even if for 3 months doesn't work, you can back out of it. But ageism is something which is really prevalent, especially when it comes to consulting. because that is a
Okay.
consulting sort of a project. It's not I'm giving him branding solutions. I'm consulting him on how to run his business. So it becomes very difficult for somebody 35, late 30s, early 40s to be like, oh, I will listen to a mid 20-year-old guy how to run my agency.
Mhm.
So that's a concept which I'm sort of over now. Now I don't put my time and effort and energy to sort of convince them to each their own. If they don't want to sort of get any assistance, I would not bother them anyway.
Yeah. So that is the thing. You can't teach someone who doesn't want to get taught or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
If he or she is rigid about like his principles and he or she is never going to adapt or change. You know that
Yeah.
we cannot change a person, be it a founder, be it an employee, be it a client, anyone. So
Yeah.
one thing I would like to understand, change means, correct me if I'm wrong, this mindset that there are employees in a company, there are like 20 employees. The mindset of that you have to pay them. Sorry, yeah. So the mindset that makes you.
Actually, your voice is not audible anymore. Can you repeat the question? What were you
So
saying?
yeah, yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. This about this mindset that there is a founder who's having employees around 20 employees or more than 20, thinking that you have to pay this employees so that you can, like, having the mindset that you have to pay these employees, uh, that makes you drive clients, like thinking employees as a liability rather than an asset. Have you experienced this in other founders, agency founders, or like is it a wrong thing, or is it completely fine?
Give me an example.
Like for example, like there are 20 employees and you have to pay 10 lakhs in terms of salary on a monthly basis. So for that, like, you are getting clients or you are dying to get clients so that you can pay them.
I think this has like whenever we hire employees,
Mm-hmm.
one thing which we make sure is that for every employee that we hire, we at least need to have 3 to 6 months of their salary already in bank. That has to already be there. We have to have their salary in place. So one thing which we used to do earlier was we used to, something which we're doing even now is that we don't hire senior designers. We
Okay.
hire junior or mid-level designers and train them to be seniors. So because senior members is very difficult to hire, very difficult to poach, you have to wait for several months for their notice period to finish up. So for me to reduce the level of stress which I have, I would only hire somebody if I have 3 to 6 months of their salary, which I can pay with comfort, with ease, and then do such a good job with them that the work that they do, the good quality that they deliver to this client, 3 months later, that client will itself bring another client, or that portfolio will would lead to another client. So, like, it does not lead to any sort of stress at this stage. In the earlier months, in the first 6 months to 9 months of Confetti, that used to be a big problem. That we used to hire designers, but we did not have a regular inflow of clients because we did not crack all of this that we have been able to crack in the last 1 or 2 years.
That was something that I felt like I've experienced from other agency founders. That the thing I feel this is a very red flag and not a good approach, thinking employers as a liability, because like you hired people and you don't have clients. Why are you hiring them? And you are like making ends meet with clients or making ends meet with interns. So this is something that I've seen in the industry happening. That's why
Yeah,
I
that's why a lot
had
of people
this.
just hire
Mm,
interns only and not like full-time
mm,
designers. Because interns is a bit less risky because 3 months later they will already go.
mm.
With full-time employees, you have to think a bit more long-term compared to the next 3 months. You have to think for the next year, next 2 years. So this is something which we've learned the hard way. Earlier, we used to suffer and, be stuck in the same problem. But now in the last 2 years, since we made those big decisions of niching down, providing all the services that we do at the quality that we do, now it's no longer a problem.
That makes sense. Like initially, it has to be very well thought, but once you are beyond the survival stage, you can do good. So
Exactly, man.
moving ahead, we have this main topic of the whole podcast, that FMCG. So tell me if you have tried any other niche before you settle down on FMCG, before, like, in the whole 3 years of a span of agency.
Yeah, I don't think we have tried any other
Mm,
niche. We have tried
mm.
several other industries, but never niched down on
Okay.
them because niching down is a relatively permanent
Mm,
decision. Because once you're known for something, it's really difficult to be known for something else. It's like a brand.
mhm.
Once
Yeah.
a brand is known, let's say now Thumbs Up is known for being
Mm,
energetic, powerful, daring, taking risks, doing stunts, all of that.
mhm.
Tomorrow, Thumbs Up can't release like a healthier sort of an offering that, oh, this
Yeah.
is organic thumbs up. It would not float. So that is the same thing with niching as well.
Mhm.
That if right now we are known for FMCG and retail, then difficult for us to be known for something else in the future. Now, this is the branding that we have done for ourselves.
Mhm.
So we haven't tried other niches before this. We have tried other industries. We worked with real estate. We worked with fintech. We worked with crypto. We worked with several industries. Eventually, we decided that after we have experimented so much that okay, FMCG and retail is where we want to eventually finalize ourselves at. So
Okay.
no more niche, but industries we have experimented with.
Yeah. What made you settle down in FMCG? Anything personal, any story, or anything that you just like,
Uh,
ये अच्छा लग रहा है इसलिए कर लेते हैं, something like
I
that?
think because the products that we were designing for that sort of
Mhm.
time were products that we would actually be able to use. So it
Okay.
felt a lot more personal. So let's say if
Mhm.
there's a cocktail brand, or if there is
Mhm.
chips brand, or there is a skincare brand, or anything,
Mhm.
then it allowed us to be a lot more personally involved. That okay, this for this brand, I'm a
Mhm.
potential customer. We did not feel that sort of a pull when we
Mhm.
were working with crypto, or when we were working with real estate, or with finance, or fintech, and eventually seeing your products out there in shopping aisles, in vending machines, all of that sort of made us feel very good as well.
Mhm.
And then we realized that as a design strategist, I was able to provide the best amount of value to these companies where there were so many different pieces and they were all disconnected. So how does one connect them? So this is where again the strategy phase of my skill set sort of came
Mhm.
in, but it was not anything beyond these two things. Just the fact that we were more fascinated by seeing our products
Mhm.
that we can actually use, and how as a design strategist I was able to link manufacturing with logistics, with marketplaces
Mhm.
and website and branding and packaging all together. So these are the two things.
Yeah, that is even better. Like if you are passionate about something, then you will definitely give your best, more than
Hmm.
100%. And that's what we want. That's what as a founder, as a client, everyone is looking for. Like absolute
100%.
best thing that we can get. Yeah. So tell us about FMCG. That how has been your experience? What were the ups and downs? What were the challenges? How were you thinking
Mhm.
initially about FMCG, and how are you thinking now? Tell us about this whole 3 years.
Hmm. So I think we were not
Mm.
thinking initially of anything when it comes to FMCG. It was pretty much
Okay.
okay, let's give this a shot. The highest probability that we have of success is FMCG out of all
Mhm.
the other industries that we've worked in, because the problem statement is interesting. But the only thing which we have seen now is that there is so much to learn. Like you can go so deep. Like 3 years is
Mhm.
not at all enough. Like I would not say 5 or 10 years is enough. There is so much to learn within FMCG. Every month there is a new insight that we're able to gather.
Mhm.
And within FMCG, the interesting thing is as consumers change, as their behaviors change, FMCG brands and how we have to solve for them changes as well. Nowadays, people are, as a compared to back when we started picking this up as a niche, quick commerce was not a thing. Now, quick commerce is a massive driver of how people purchase products. So,
Mhm.
Zepto, Blinkit, all of these platforms. So, it's such a quickly evolving sort of stage that now, whenever we're designing, we're also thinking about how do we get this product on quick commerce. Earlier, we never thought about that. So, that sort of a thing keeps us on our toes, that you're never at a stage where you have learned everything. That's really great. And in addition to that,
Mhm.
the best piece is as an agency, since we work within FMCG and retail space, there are so many
Mhm.
moving pieces which we can add as a service. So earlier it was branding, then it became branding and packaging, then branding, packaging, e-commerce websites. Then we added product photography, then content creation. Tomorrow we will even add social media influencers. All of these
Mhm.
things can be added within the same, domino effect of FMCG brands. So that is the best part. And then whenever we add a new service, it opens up a completely different world of, okay, now we can learn these things as well. So we're not stuck on being a branding agency or a website agency or a packaging agency. We're constantly adding more and more pieces to completely fill the jigsaw of FMCG. And
Mhm.
hopefully in the next year or two, we might be there or we might be very close to that point. But that is something which I have seen, which I did not realize would be there when we started FMCG. We thought it would be a very easy play. branding, packaging, and that's it. But the more deeper we go, we're realizing that it's much, much more difficult and challenging than we initially thought it would be. But that's the best part. That's something which is keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, again, same thing, same principle. I would apply that what you don't know what you don't know. So the more
Exactly.
you deep dive and the more you interact with the people and involve yourself in the industry, you get to know more about it. And I've seen some podcasts. I'm not into FMCG. I'm not a big fan of FMCG, but I don't know why. But I'm very curious about this F&B space and all, like where experience
Mm.
plays a very huge role and matters and all like that. So I was listening to some podcast, and it is so great. And a lot of things happen. There is operations, there is packaging, and these stuffs are good. Like it is on the upfront, but beyond that, there are a lot of things that is happening. Like
Mm.
tons and tons of things that makes a huge impact on the success of a business.
Yeah.
So
And the deeper you go, that's when you
yes,
realize that there is so much that you have left to learn.
exactly. One thing I would like, next thing I would like to understand is that we already talked about this difference between this digital industry and a physical company industry. But what is the biggest difference in FMCG and other sectors in terms of designing a packaging or a branding or websites and something like that?
Mm. Uh, I would say there are two things to this.
Mm.
The first one is something which we have termed as irreversibility of design.
Yeah.
So in FMCG, design is a lot more permanent compared to the other industries, I would say, that we've already discussed. The second piece I would say that is different is other areas, it's still easy to wrap your head around the moving pieces and actually
Mm.
imp- understand the importance of those moving pieces. Now, I'll take an example of website.
Mm.
Not every FMCG or D2C brand, like not every FMCG brands need a website. And there are, like, for example, milk. If you're selling Amul Doodh, you don't need a website. Even if you have a
Mm.
website, your website is not a sales channel.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there might be brands like Country Delight, whose complete business, Country Delight, or is it Milk Basket, where your complete business runs on your mobile application. So there are certain nuances. Why does one company need a mobile application to deliver milk? But why does Amul not need anything to sell milk? So it's these nuances, and I'll give you I'll give you an even better example of this. Let's say
Mm.
it's a product. Have you bought Sleepy Owl
Sleepy or no? Like
coffee?
I have my flatmate. I am not a coffee person, so I've never. Yeah.
Acha, so but you are aware of Sleepy Owl, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sleepy Owl's primary sales channel is their website. But other coffee brands, most of them, the traditional
Mm.
ones, their primary sales channel is their offline presence, their retailers. Now, they both are selling coffee. Why is Nescafe not selling through their website? So these are certain nuances which you learn as you go deeper into this thing. And I think the importance of, let's say, website for Nescafe versus website for Sleepy Owl, that is a very interesting problem to understand and solve compared to tech, at least for us as Confetti, as an agency. That is a problem that we are much more curious to solve compared to what tech brands are doing. So these are the two things which, would really stand out. The moving pieces and the irreversibility of design of, let's say, packaging.
Those two things are very important in terms of any business or any industry. But here it plays a bigger role. As we already talked about the FMCG, it is like drawbacks
Hmm.
and constraints. Like we cannot reverse back a change on a 10 lakh prints. So yeah, we have
Exactly,
to be
man.
very careful. Yeah. So we like in the past 3 years, almost 3 years of working with FMCG brands and all kind of founders. What kind of difference have you experienced in terms of their mindset? For example, there is a founder who is running a business of 100 CR a month or a year, and there is a founder who wants to start their FMCG brand. What kind of different mindset have you experienced, and was that impact on selling your services? Like, was it hard to sell someone? Was it easy to sell someone? Was it something like that?
I think the size of their business is one of the factors, but it's not the only factor, because we have talked to people who are running, let's say, 100 crore, like even 1,000 crore a month business in the FMCG space, and they have a very similar attitude sometimes to very early stage founders. That the early stage founders would say that, oh, I know everything. And this extremely successful brand's founder would say that I know everything. So whenever a person who has made it up is now doing very well, whenever they say that they're doing very well or they know everything, it's still easier to believe them because they have financials to prove it. But I think from a sales perspective, uh, it doesn't play a massive role. It's the middle sort of segment which is interesting, which is neither a brand new startup but not very successful, because it's these types of people who are no longer in the honeymoon phase of the earlier path. So that is good. They know the problems and they know that when we talk about the problems, we are not amplifying or we are not exaggerating the problems. So they know that what we are speaking is the truth. But they're not that big that they would have an attitude that, oh, we know everything. So it's the middle segment, which is the sweet spot that you want to capture. These people have faced the problems, have faced the setbacks, have faced losses. So that is good. But they're not so big that they would have an attitude. And these are the type of brands that we enjoy mostly the work with.
So there is a difference in attitude in terms of a startup founder, a bootstrap company, and 100 CR or 1000 CR company.
Exactly. But the attitude is coming from a different place. When a startup founder says, I know everything, it's coming from a place of ignorance. And whenever a founder of a really successful brand says that I know everything, it's genuinely coming from a place of knowing everything.
Yeah, that I have experienced also. One thing I would like to understand that in terms of like, have you ever experienced that you have to fire a client or like say that what you are doing is very completely bullshit or like that will not work just because he's
Once
very
or twice, I would say, which is
insecure
very
or
rare, like
irrelevant to what he or
compared
she
to
is doing.
the number of projects that we have so long. It's happened like, I think max to max once or twice, and in which one of the instances we had to actually let them go after the very first day because they were just talking very rudely to one of our employees.
Okay.
And that's it. So we did not even get into the design phase of it. We were still in the research phase of it. And within that sort of point, I had to let them go. But yeah, beyond that, the people that we work with are already knowing how we do it, what we do. They're coming from referrals. They have seen my work. They have seen other brands that I have worked with. So then the chances of that like are massively reduced.
Okay. But one thing, like one different thing, the same thing, same question that what if a startup, like there is a person who wants to start a FMCG brand, but his value prop or whatever he wants to try to achieve is completely out of context, like that will not work in the real life. Have you ever experienced such kind of clients or what have you done with them? Like, will you said
Yeah, we have.
straight no?
We don't say no straight away. We actually ask them that we want to first be involved in a consultation engagement before we get into branding. And in that sort of consultation engagement, we will refine your offering. We might change your products. We might do some customer interviews. We might do some customer insights. If this thing works, then we'll take it up for branding. And in case they say no, then the chances of their success are pretty low. But we still like work with some of them because again, as an agency founder or somebody who is working with FMCG brands, I have seen a lot of surprising successful stories as well. There are instances where I was thinking the project, like the brand might fail. Maybe we're talking about US, we're talking about some other country, and those brands do really well. So that is something which I don't want to do, to think that I know everything. I would share my insight with them, but as a founder, if they have some insights, they have a vision with the brand. The reason why they're hiring me is to bring that vision to life in the best possible manner. So that is what I would do. And as a founder, that is the sort of educated risk which they are taking on their vision. That, okay, I will listen to Rishabh in these scenarios. I will not listen to Rishabh in these scenarios. And if that risk pays off, it's actually good for them. So I would not, put ourselves in the bucket that we know everything. Whatever we know, we will share with you, but the final call will be of the founder itself.
Yeah, that makes completely sense because sometimes what happens is that the client is in a delusion that he knows everything and his product will be the best out of there. But in reality, as a consumer, if you think that it will not be of any use, so instead of wasting our energy on designing something that will not work, it is better to help them on a consultation basis, which is great that you are doing that.
Exactly.
So, Yeah, moving ahead, tell us one different, like you mentioned that in terms of US clients, it is a bit different. There is FTA and all those stuff. So, what has been the biggest difference in terms of clients from India and clients from US of the FMCG industry? Like how different their mindset are?
I think the clients in
Mm.
the US think a lot bigger, primarily because they're not so blinded by the D2C growth. In India, I think post Shark Tank, the pattern which we have observed is, oh, we'll just launch this brand, we'll launch a website, the product will sell, story khatam. In the US, it's a lot more long term that, okay, how do we get this product to Walmart? How do we get this product to Target? How do we get this product? Like, and these brands are very much into B2B sales as well. How can we get into corporate gifting? How can we get this product into hotels? In India, I have noticed that a lot of founders are sometimes misguided by the D2C boom. That, oh, branding, packaging, website, काम खत्म. So that is one major difference which I have seen. And that is why American founders are also willing to invest a lot more. But again, there are exceptions on both sides. There are some exceptions in the US market as well who are trying to just take the easy route, cut corners, and do their launch ASAP. And there are some great Indian brands who are willing to look at the bigger picture, want to go slowly and steadily. But there are exceptions, but this is the general trend which we have been able to observe.
That makes sense. But one thing I am very interested in terms of design or aesthetic part, that whenever we see these packaging awards or design awards, and the packaging that are based out of India, like be it UK, US, clients, having, even in China, you were in China or something, and out of India, you were in Japan, right? You were posting some packaging inspiration from there. So all those stuffs are completely different of what is happening in India. Is it because of the massive population in India that the client want to serve to make it commercial, to make it appealing to the general audience, or is it because that client don't understand the importance of good aesthetic or different aesthetic? What do you
I
think?
think it's no, no, I think it's not just clients. I think it's also designers.
Okay.
Uh, because there are designers who are like our maturity of design is of course evolving. It's getting better, but I don't think it's still there yet, except for maybe like handful of agencies or handful of founders. And we are so enamored by how do we get this design approved within 3 revisions. And if a client asks that, okay, can you convert this design into a physical mockup, not digital, but physical mockup, so we can touch and feel, oh, this is not part of the scope of work. So I think there are certain things in which the designers are just like forcing themselves to not be successful by adding, friction to the project. And the best way to solve it is just charge higher.
Yep.
Charge higher so that in case there are some scenarios in which you have to go beyond 3rd revision, 4th revision, you can do that. So it's a win-win situation. You win, the client wins, everybody is happy. So I think sometimes the level of maturity of designers outside is much better. However, here, the difference is you are competing against 1 lakh graphic designers or whatever that number might be. Outside, you're competing against 10,000 designers or 5,000 or 1,000 designers. So because here the competition between the designers itself is so like massive, everybody's sort of like, okay, I can do this for 1 lakh. Oh, I can do this for 90,000. Oh, I can do this for 80,000. At the end, there would be somebody who's doing it for 30,000.
Yeah.
And you can't expect, like, when somebody's working on that tight of a budget to deliver something which is like just amazing and out of this world. So I think they like, it's not just the client. I think clients, of course, it's something which we have talked about, but I think the problem with designers is something which is not talked about that much.
I think the problem is not with just designers. My perspective is that, like, even if designers want to go out of box and create some designs that can be globally pleasing or globally appealing, the clients are not ready to invest in that kind of experiment, you can say, because they have seen that there are a lot of safe options that we can go with. There is always a safe option that we can go with any kind of design, and all those
Yeah,
experimental design, different design is something that can be risky for them.
I
And in
think it's also
FMCG,
to do with
yeah, so.
I think it's
Mm.
also to do with how well you put your argument in front of the design,
Okay.
in front of the clients.
Mm.
And you have to also understand where the client is coming from. If you're
Yeah.
working with a client who has put all their life savings on one particular project or one particular brand or one FMCG product, of course, like everybody would be a bit risk averse. So on the other hand, if let's say you're working with somebody like Forest Essential or, you know, any other chips brand, Doritos, or any brand like these, or Thumbs Up or Sting, then there are two things which happen. Either the client is very risk averse. So if they're very young, they're doing it for the first time, they would not want to take the risk. Nobody wants to take that risk, especially if the objective criteria is not to win design awards. Objective criteria is the client wants ROI on their money. Design award as a byproduct is okay.
Exactly.
But we don't like, but the design award will not feed the client's family.
Yeah.
So that is something which, the designers need to keep in mind that, okay, what is the background of the person that I'm talking to? How risk averse are they? And secondly, a lot of brands, bigger brands that we have worked with, they come with very deep research. They've already done the hard part. They already know what colors, what patterns, what shape, what size, what material will work. So, and they have really credible sources. They have interviewed and conducted focus group sessions with 10,000 customers. So then if there is a designer who's like, hey, I have this out of the box idea, you will be shut down in a board meeting. Nobody will listen to you because it's coming simply from a place of art. And that's the difference between art and design. Design has to be a lot more functional first and then aesthetic. But if there is somebody who's credibly coming with a lot of data to back it up, it's relatively difficult to convince a room full of 10 people when you're coming with, I think so, and the other person is coming with like a 20-page report. So those sort of differences are definitely there. But there are time and time again brands and founders who are able to sort of, hit it like in a positive manner and create some things which are very good on a global scale. And I think that's coming from like really big agencies like in India as well, not just outside. I think like some agencies and freelancers in India are doing like a really good job at it.
Yeah, I think it will take some time to break that belief of that key. You have to go the safest way, and it will take some time that if someone is trying experimental design, and if that is working, then that will make other founders also like, we can try something like that. It has worked.
So you have to put your case in a nice manner.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes completely sense. There is one interesting thing that is also personal to me. Like I have experienced this personally, standing in a grocery mart, and the differentiation in the very generic product. For example, there is oats or muesli. How would you differentiate in that kind of products? How has been your experience? Like everyone is trying to be organic, everyone is trying to be natural, everyone is trying to be fresh. But what is the story that we can build if there is nothing to build off in terms of any FMCG brand?
In something like this, like of course, whenever we do comp analysis, this is the most fundamental question that we are faced with. How do we stand out if the market is so saturated? And this is where a brand story might come into the picture. So I'll give you an example because you're talking about cereal. Let's look at a brand like Chocos. They're able to launch a mascot. I think it's Coco the monkey or Choco the monkey, something like that. So there are these sort of creative ways in which you have to stand out of your competition. Or if you look at Whole Food. Sorry, the Whole Truth.
Whole Truth, yeah.
So Whole Truth has like completely changed the game when it comes to, okay, every brand is trying to be honest and organic and natural. We'll take it to the extreme end. And they have their ingredients not at the small thing at the back, but massively in the front of the packaging itself. So I think this is where you have to take some different routes, do a lot more physical testing, and go beyond an engagement which fixes you in a 3 revision cycle. I think eventually for us to build something great like this, feel free to charge more, but let the client and let the designer have that flexibility and luxury of, okay, we're not stuck in 3 revisions. And it's good for both the designer as well as the client.
Till or unless you have the perfect design, you can experiment, you can explore.
Like perfect design or like something which both parties can say that, okay, I'm
near
really
perfect.
satisfied with this.
It never, nothing is going to be
and then
perfect.
the market will tell you if this is good or not.
Yeah, because in my experience about cereal and oats, I was standing in a grocery mart and I was looking at all of kind of products. There was a brand, True Elements, with having a black packaging, very very generic, very different. Then there is Whole Truth. Then there was Tata. I think there was Tata, and there are some other companies which I've never heard about. I picked up Quaker Oats, the most
Hmm.
simple, most plain, nothing, no
Yeah.
fancy. Yeah, the trusted brand. Whole Truth was good, but it was like having a though out of all those flavored or different oats or muesli, Whole Truth was having only transparent packaging, which was actually letting you see what is in the product.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
That's something which is like
Mm,
we have seen like statistically as well to perform much better. Having
mm,
transparent things.
mm,
But this is where like legacy brands and the sort of target audience sort of comes into the picture
mm,
because maybe the sort of target customer, the whole truth, whole
mm.
whole truth, whole truth.
Yeah, Whole
Maybe
Truth.
the target audience which whole truth has
Mm,
like is much more different compared to the Quaker Oats one.
mm.
One of the brands is like an up and coming player. The other one is a legacy brand. So I think there are like certain nuances to that. But I think you raised a very nice question, which
Mm,
is something which other graphic designers and branding agencies should think about. How
mm.
do you differentiate between a product in which it's very difficult to differentiate? Like it's a milk, Amul milk
Yeah.
and mother dairy. So like, how do you differentiate in an industry which is like very commoditized?
I
So this is a
literally
good
saw on
question
a
for like,
shelf. Yeah. Just to add on this point, that I literally saw on a shelf there was a Amul Gold. I am a daily user of Amul Gold, and just beside it was organic milk, and it was
yeah,
125 for 1 liter. Amul Gold is 80 rupees 1 liter. I'm like, Amul
mhm,
Gold is already expensive for me, man.
yeah.
Why would I? Why would?
It's a right question to like
Hmm,
pose for I think designers who are looking for a good challenge.
hmm,
So it would not be how can I design for a skincare
hmm,
brand which has this and this and this? Because of course, in those things you can be very differentiated.
hmm.
How can you differentiate it when a product is very commoditized? I think that's a very good design challenge for everybody who's listening to this.
Definitely, definitely. So, just to wrap this up with everything that we have discussed about, I would like to have two last questions that will be actionable step for anyone who is watching. So, first one is for all those freelancers and agency owners or early stage startup founders who wants to get into design and who wants to build something out of this. One golden piece of advice would you like to give to them?
Okay, this would not be a design related
Mm,
advice, but it would be
mm,
an advice for all designers and everybody,
definitely. Mm,
either a freelancer or an agency owner.
mm.
Read the book that I'm about to suggest you in
Yeah.
complete entirety, even if it takes a
Mm,
month or two or
mm,
1 week or whatever.
mm,
The book is called Psycho-Cybernetics. That's it. Read that book,
mm,
regardless of what you're doing, even if you're not a non-designer.
mm.
That book will help you more than like any design book that you can think of. Like
That.
that book will make you a
Mm,
much better designer compared to any design book. Just read that book, Psycho-Cybernetics.
mm.
Yeah, that would be my one advice.
Perfect, perfect. So another question. Same thing. One golden piece of advice for all the FMCG founders who want to start their brand. For established, they already know the things, but who want to start something.
I think would be something not related to FMCG per se, but just like all the founders out there who are trying to start something, but it's more applicable toward FMCG brands. And that is like like while deciding
Mm,
which agency to work with, because again, that massively changes the direction in which your company grows.
mm,
So while taking that decision, always have, and it's a problem which I think is
mm,
chicken and an egg problem.
mm,
That is to realize the number of moving pieces that you will eventually face 1 year down the line, 2 year down the line, 3 year down the line,
mm,
and take your decision based on that. Don't take the decision based on what you know currently.
mm,
Take the decision based on 3 years down the line, what are the moving pieces? Because, like, I'll give you an example.
mm.
Most founders think that, oh, let's just launch now. Once we have launched, then we will change the packaging. Like, then we will properly invest in our packaging. Abhi launch kar dete hain.
Mm,
But with that approach, 6 महीने बाद आप होंगे ही नहीं. Like, you will not be there in
mm,
existence to reinvest good money in packaging. So that is the anecdotal example which like we sort of listen in every week, every month. People say that, oh, let's just launch right now. 6 months later, we'll invest properly when we have money. How will you have money when your first launch is unsuccessful? You will
mm.
be
Burn
spending
money. Yeah.
twice as much money. You will be in a burning money stage. You will not be in
Yeah.
a growing money. You will be in a burning money stage.
Mm,
So I think we should take decisions again. So that's why this advice is not just for FMCG founders, but founders in general, to take decisions from a much long-term perspective and not what little information which we might have, especially as a first-time founder, because most first-time businesses fail. It's very rare to see a first-time business get successful. So that would be my advice for people, especially in the FMCG or retail space.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. I hope this helps. So, just to wrap this whole episode, this was episode 8 of the VYRus Show. We had Rishabh sharing such insights, and this was really great. I personally got some really great insights, and which I will be applying on my next career.
Awesome,
The
man.
books that you have recommended, all those books will be
Yes.
mentioned in the link. So,
Psycho-cybernetics, go ahead.
yeah, definitely. So, that was the episode. I hope this helps you a lot, and milte hain next.
Thank you so much. See ya.